Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Sword and Tea, a TTRPG chat show, where we sit down with wonderful folks in the TTRPG community, designers, creators, artists, musicians, all sorts of people that put so much passion and love into the projects that they create. This is our cozy chat show, and we encourage you to be cozy as well. So have a cozy beverage of your preference, whether that be coffee, tea, or whatever makes you happy, maybe a blanket, and feel free while you are listening to this chat to post any questions you might have about the game we are discussing today or for the game's creator. In the chat there, you can also go over to the Sword and Key Discord and post them in the Sword and Tea chat. That said, I am Derek Sword. I am your host today. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm joined by Carson Daniel, the creator of Tales from Myriad. Carson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's very nice to have you. We're going to be discussing Tales from Myriad, a game that you have clearly painstakingly designed, that was funded on Kickstarter quite some not that long ago, but was fully funded on Kickstarter. Actually, from what I saw, really quickly once it had gone on Kickstarter as well, got funded incredibly quickly. So congratulations on that. It is a game that is currently available, so you can get a copy for yourself at Metalweave Games if you type in Tales from Myriad. The greatest, I think, one of the best things about it is a unique title that not a lot of other things are going to come up. It's going to come up with the actual TTRPG. So you can see Carson's itch, which has some additional things for the game. Metalweave Games has the primary game itself and all of the main stuff you will need to run it, but we're going to be talking all about that today. Before we do that, I do want to say that this is a Sword and Key stream. You can find all of Sword and Key's stuff at beacons.ai/Sword and Key. You can find links to our socials. It's Instagram, Blue Sky. We have a Discord as well. Again, you can go to that Discord and post questions in our Sword and Tea chat discussion thing on the server. Also on Beacons, you can find links to some of our affiliates. We have a number of great affiliates. There's Long Dog Dice. Jen with Long Dog Dice makes incredible dice sets. You can get your perfect dice set, including the official Sword and Key Horizons Call dice set, which have the little Sword and Key logo on the D6. You can use code Sword and Key for 10% off your first purchase there. We're also affiliates with Eldritch Foundry. They make custom minis. You can also use code Sword and Key for 10% off your first purchase with them. However, you can also use our affiliate link right now. If you are a 3D printing kind of person, if you use a lot of STLs, they have a special deal through our special affiliate link where you can get 3 months for $19.99 unlimited 3D printing STL models through them. So you can make as many custom things as you want and print them as long as you have that filament. We are also affiliates with Hit Point Press, makers of Humblewood and Islands of Siena Una, and tons of stuff. Griffin Saddlebag Books. We have an affiliate link if you're going to be purchasing from them. Also on the Beacons, you get some of our charitable organizations. There's a number of them that we're always in support of. So if you're ever looking to put your money towards a great cause, there are some options there, including Palestinian Children's Relief Fund and Canadian Campaigns for Independence. It is still Service Dog Month in the United States, so it's a great time to support great service dog organizations like CCI. All that said, there's plenty of other links on there, so check it out. We'll talk about more of them at the end here, but this is time for us to talk about Tales from Myriad. So, before we get to that, Carson, again, thank you so much for joining us. Where might people recognize your name, your work? Where might people have seen you before?
So yeah, my online name is EmberWick. That's the username that you can pretty much find all of my stuff by. The thing that people probably have seen the most of me is actually the Legends and Lattes book cover. That's probably the the thing that I'm most notorious for. I regularly get emails. It's about like once a week I'll get an email from somebody being like, saw the cover, I want the same thing for me. So probably that. Probably you've seen the Legends and Lattes covers. If you've played the MOBA Smite, I've done splash art for Smite.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say Legends of Lattes was definitely the first one. I remember when Eva came to me, I was like, "Wait, you're talking to? Is that the same person?" I'm glad you're getting continued offers for it, and yeah, I know Legends of Lattes just absolutely blew up, and that cover is very evocative. But I also do like to use the word notorious for that.
Oh
That's
God, yes.
yeah. I know
Yeah.
it's tough to be known for the one thing, but it sounds like you've done quite a bit. So when it comes to TTRPG writing, or actually TTRPGs in general, what is your history with that? When did you start playing TTRPGs? When did you start writing TTRPGs? What does that journey kind of look like for you?
Um, so I actually grew up in a really restrictive household, but I was always drawn to like the Dungeons and Dragons book because it's a dude fighting a dragon. I'm like, whoa. Um, and some years later, I remember I was at a park and I was talking to my dad and my oldest brother. Um, and I was like, "Do you guys know anything about like Dungeons and Dragons?" And they looked at me like my head had fallen off because like the two of them are way crazy into it and just never talked to me about it. And so from then, we actually went out and unfortunately we bought the fourth ed books, which I think we tried to run once, but I mostly looked at the pictures because I was like too young at that point. But after that, it was Pathfinder time, as was the Zeitgeist. So it was Pathfinder first E plus a little bit of like 3.5. Basically whatever you didn't like about Pathfinder, you just do the 3.5 version. Um, and then I ran into like all these problems with it because because uh, yeah, other people would like DM, and I just remember if I was like, I just feel like there's something I could be like getting out of this that I'm not. Then 5e rolled around, and the reason that I got into 5e was because sorcerers and wizards had different spell lists. I remember that very distinctly. I was like, yes, that's correct. They shouldn't have the same spell list. Um, and so Critical Role, like campaign 2 was just starting, so there was like this big media boom about it. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna like try running games. And so I became the forever GM since then. Um, Tales from Myriad specifically started as a 5e hack. It was like this list of things that I was like, oh, but what if we did this way? Um, and 5e definitely still has like you can see like the 5e influence in Tales from Myriad. There's very specific reasons for that, but um, yeah, it started as a 5e hack, and then I moved to the Netherlands, and immediately COVID happened, and then I was just complaining about like 5e and tabletop RPGs. And my roommate, she actually has a special thanks in the very beginning of the book, um, was just like, God, if he's just going to complain this much about it, like just go write something. And then I did. So that's the brief long history of like my tabletop RPG upcoming.
Yeah, I mean, I love when great advice can come from somebody being just beleaguered by
Just
someone else's paper.
exhausted,
Yeah,
maybe.
just do it. So it sounds like Tales from Myriad was kind of like, while the book itself wasn't your first foray into writing, it kind of like was one of the first big pieces of writing you were doing, kind of this hack for 5e, and then deciding to just kind of make it its own thing after the frustration with 5e.
Yeah, well, it was super specific.
To recap ever so briefly, and I will not do it justice, we talked about how you're an artist, you're a TTRPG creator, that people would know you from the cover art of Legends and Lattes, perhaps notoriously so, I think was the word that you used, and that you have built Tales from Myriad from a 5e kind of hack into something else entirely. As with many of the people that we're joined by here on Sword and Tea, 5e just irritated them a little too much that they decided to create their own thing, which I think is a beautiful energy to have. Just like I could do this better.
Yeah.
So I think that's great.
You
Um,
create things out of either, it's been said, not by me.
mhm,
They
yeah,
say you create things either out of spite or horniness, and this was spite for sure.
I respect that. That's great. I think that's 100% true. So, with that in mind, Tales from Myriad being this, I think one of the things that I saw for the Kickstarter was that it was a fantasy TTRPG that is both great for new players and players who might be, seasoned veterans, but that it has a focus on exploration and also like, what was it, like having the best wardrobe or wearing like the best clothes or something like that.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
gotta have the
and
sickest threads.
sickest as I think that was it. Yeah, that's pretty great. So, with that in mind, for Tales from Myriad, um, let's do an elevator pitch for Tales from Myriad. When people are coming to this game perhaps for the first time, what is the biggest draw? We got six threads, we've got exploration. What are they looking to get themselves into?
The elevator pitch, I've always found this one difficult because the way that I would pitch it is that it's just like a full-bodied campaign system. I
Mhm.
mean, it's you said so yourself off cam that it was the biggest book
Yes.
thus far that you've gotten, and that's
Yeah.
just it. Like it's a full-bodied start to finish campaign system. Um, yeah, I think it's the vibes of it is roll with the punches because it has such a get it on the table and see what happens um, kind of chaotic flair to it. Uh, yeah, I'd say that's probably it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's greater
So
than the
so
sum of its parts because there's a lot of individual things that I could talk about, but it's really like the whole.
Yeah. Well, we are going to talk about the individual things, to be fair. So we could talk about the
Wonderful.
sum of its parts as well.
All
But
right.
it sounds like you've got campaign, you've got rule set, character creation, all that kind of stuff. Campaign setting as well. So yeah, I mean a lot that really goes into this to set it apart from other fantasy TTRPGs. Um, so let's talk a little bit about at least the inspiration was this 5e hack. But beyond that, I know that I mean, people can pull from a lot of different places for fantasy inspiration. When you were when you were creating your own thing with Tales from Myriad, what were some of your inspirations for that? How'd you make it your own? Was there anything that you pulled from for that?
So when I say it started as a 5e hack, it was like a list of little tweaks
Hmm.
um, that I went back to when I just started making my own tabletop RPG. Because like the creation of Tales from Myriad was very specific in its execution. Um, so when I say that, like, there's a couple of 5e bones still left in there, it's mostly like familiar language, which was done specifically to be appealing to people who might be moving off of 5e. Because like at the time of making it, like the OGL scandal hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So there wasn't like, I was making it for people like me, or people who just like wanted something new in general. So as far as inspirations go, there's definitely it was like de-grim-darking Warhammer. Um,
Okay.
yeah, there was a lot of that. There's a lot of de-grim-darking Warhammer because I love miscasting. Obviously, there's these big miscast charts, and everybody loves miscasting in Myriad. But I never liked the like you just get punished in a way that might kill you kind of way. Like that's not fun. Um, so like there was that, and like the a few mechanics were taken from like a little bit of the Warhammer Fantasy roleplay stuff, like the casting difficulty for the spells because I
Hmm.
didn't like spell slots. Um, yeah, I'd say that most of the game doesn't have tabletop RPG inspirations. It's mostly artistic ones or like a few video games. The front cover is very specifically designed to evoke Final Fantasy Tactics,
Yeah.
um, which, if anything, I'd say I'm more inspired by Tactics Advance, but whatever. And gosh, what else? Like a little bit of Adventure Time. The artwork of Ella Kremer, who is a Dutch artist, and I actually got some of her art in the book. Um, Probably is what kickstarted this idea of Myriad as like a location to like run games in. Um, and by the way, it's called Myriad because I'm real like full of myself. I was like 20. I was like, it's called Myriad because you could run any kind of game in it. Um, and then as it, got developed, I realized that that was a bad idea. And you know, nobody really cares about a game you can do anything in. Otherwise, we'd all be playing GURPS. Um,
Yeah,
so
a lot of us didn't benefit from having fully formed frontal lobes when we started creating things. It's okay. I think it's a cool name.
Thank you. You were talking
Yeah,
to me about the name earlier about like, oh, it's like so easy to Google. It
yeah,
is easy to get the result of Tales from Myriad if you Google Tales from Myriad. And actually, part of the name was me making sure there weren't things called that because it was called Myriad. And I was like, oh, you would think like Tales of Myriad would be like the first idea, but there's like a
sure.
bunch
Yeah.
of different things called that. Um, and it's actually apparently very difficult for people to remember. I get approached when I get approached, like at conventions and stuff, and people will tell me like, "I really love Myriad Tales," or like "Tales of Myriad," or "Tales from the Myriad." Like, like interviewers are the only people who say it right. It's like
Every
this,
variation of
yeah,
that.
every
Yeah.
possible one you could say to not just say the name of the thing. But yes, it was specifically designed to be to be Googleable, to be
Yeah.
searchable online.
Well, I know you mentioned the that artwork was perhaps an inspiration for this, and something to note that in this book, I mean, you have a long list of artists for the interior artwork, as well as your border art, and you contributed, so you did the cover art. So there's a lot of really evocative art in here. I think one of the first things that struck me just as I like started scrolling through it was this sort of like snake lizard parent
Oh,
abomination on like page 11, and I
yeah.
stayed on that for longer than I'd care to admit, just trying to figure out how the anatomy on that thing worked. So I would love to talk about the monsters in this, um, but that feels like putting the weird shaped horse before the cart. So let's let's maybe start with, we have the fantasy setting. We have the differentiation. Like I said, I can see the Adventure Time inspirations in it as well, and some of the artwork, and because some of it's very whimsical, and I really appreciate that. But let's maybe start with character creation, because I think that's where a lot of people are going
Yeah.
to come to this. And like you mentioned, it's something that has that accessibility for new players. So when it comes to character creation, what are we looking at when making a character in Tales from Myriad?
Gotta roll up that outfit. That's the
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
That's it's not the first thing. You choose a job first, um, but then that tells you like what little charts to roll on, and you get an outfit. And the clothes play a pretty decent part in the game. The game is quite volatile. Like it's super swingy, which I did on purpose. Just by the way, and the clothes can, first of all, they're like literal garments that you have on yourself. So there's like a little blurb that's like, if you're wearing candles, you have candles. Um, but yeah, you can sacrifice your clothing to just like not take a hit, which is important because a lot of people start off with one hit point and they're like, uh oh. But yes, long lists of clothing, um, which again, that's like that Final Fantasy tactics and tactics advance inspiration, but also very specifically my own motivation. So I talked to you, I was saying before that like the game is made out of spite. I was
Mhm.
so sick and tired, as a freelance artist being commissioned for really really boring fantasy characters. And like I would try to do stuff and they would be like, well, no, that doesn't really make any sense. I was just like,
Mhm.
gah. Like if I see a rogue with leather armor one more time, I'm gonna lose it. I can't stand it. Because I love costuming. I love it so much. It's my favorite thing. My favorite pieces of artwork from myself in general are my outfit designs. Um, I adore them. So the game started like it was just those list of clothes. It's just like weird pieces of clothing that you can get, which I'm currently expanding. But yep, so it's that you get, and then the next part of that is that you get random gear and you get random weapons. So all the weapons, they have an adjective, the weapon type, and then a description. So it's like vibrating scimitar that leaves behind a trail of glowing butterflies. Like that'll be like the full weapon thing. And that was motivated in two parts. One part was because I didn't like this idea of having to ask the game master for permission to like have fun things. It's like, nope, you just like, have a thing that looks cool and feels cool and is yours. And then the second part that there's been some friction with people about is like the fact that your starting weapon is a random kind of weapon. There's so much to the initial character creation that's not in your control. Like your stats are rolled up in a line and you get to like choose one and like swap it with another. And then they get hit with like these big additions or like deductions to the core stat. And then you roll up all these clothes that you don't get to choose. And then you get a weapon for your character. And what you get is just this really weird guy. This is like the weird little guy simulator. Where you're gonna get something and you didn't expect it, and it's so funny. It's just this culmination of like the past 10 years of my tabletop experience of being like, and no to that, because I played with the I believe the colloquial term is grognards, and like they only played second edition or like Palladium, and so I would like play second edition with them. And they're like 40-year-old military dudes, and it's like, oh yeah, that's so and so. He only plays rangers with a bow, like that's all he does in any system. He plays a ranger with a bow, and I was like, you're not allowed to do that in my game. Like you can try to play something with a ranged weapon, but it's going to be like you're going to be flinging chakram off your fingers. Like you don't get to choose that. And then, later in the game, the rest of the game is about choices. It starts off super random, and then you get a little guy. And the one thing I've always seen is that people are like, oh, I don't know what it's all random. I want to choose, because they're so used to, they're used to fifth edition. They're used to that being like some of the only choices that they get is like what their character looks like and like what they have equipped. But then every time they do that, and then they get a character in Myriad, they immediately know who the character is. They're like, oh, of course, a merchant, and he's wearing a jester's hat and has 2 moon sickles and a pistol. It's like, I know who this guy is. It's like, I've got this guy down. And so they just get really inspired by that. That's the character creation process.
I love that. I really appreciate a level of starting equipment that defines a character more than a character has to define it.
Yeah.
I think so many of us are used to, much like you were saying with 5e, it's like, okay, I've got a rogue and they've got leather armor. I've got a cleric and they've got chainmail, or, whatever it is. And, I know a lot of us have been playing like Baldur's Gate 3 and all the starting equipment, like 99% of it is just like, I cannot wait to get rid of this. It is ugly. It is clunky. It is the same starting.
Yeah.
Anybody who's going to have this class is kind of the same starting outfit. Can't wait to get rid of it. But I really like what you were saying, where somebody knows instantly instead of having to decide who the character is beforehand, they can roll up a character and make that determination based off of the randomization. And I think that's a much more interesting type of gameplay, to not go in and be the ranger with a bow kind of guy, but just kind of let fate decide and then play that character to what you think that they would be based off of what they have. I think that's really cool.
And like I was saying, like the rest of the game is about choices. So I took what I thought was like the general formula, which is like a lot of tabletop games. It's like you have all your choices up front, and then you've got this like straight shot of like, well, okay, this is what you're going to be from start to finish. And in Myriad, it's the opposite. You start off super random, and then you slowly hone that in based on how the game progresses.
So for characters, you've got your stats, your job, equipment, your kin, which is essentially
Yep.
like what type of character, what their I guess species maybe might be.
Yeah,
Although
people are
species, I
allergic to
think.
calling them race now.
Yeah, well, even then, you have some that I wouldn't necessarily attribute the word species or race to.
Him was a suggestion by somebody on Kickstarter because it was in
yeah,
the original Kickstarter stuff. I'm like, I don't know what to call it. Species doesn't make any sense. So it's like, oh, you got these fantasy races. Then somebody was like, why don't you call them like, I don't know, kindred? And I was like, yeah, I'll do
yeah, I think
that.
that's pretty
Perfect.
great. Well, because you've got the animus, which aren't exactly like
Yeah.
they're constructs. That's not a species.
Yeah.
I would not put those
It's in
into
it.
a kingdom phylum class order, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you've got Homeland, which Homeland's are really cool. I really want to touch on those. And then name, and then you've got your personal quests, and like you said, there's Banes and Boons. Let's start with stats real quick, because you've got some different stats than again 5e has, but I think was it 7 stats in total, I think is what I saw.
Oh shoot, I don't know, probably.
Okay. Okay.
I always like
Um,
leave out one when I list them.
so yeah, what is it? I'm scrolling here. I think luck
Power,
is definitely one.
finesse.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
power, finesse, insight, charm, arcane, occult, and luck.
Okay.
So
Those all seem
them's
pretty
the thing.
self-explanatory. The main one I think I might differentiate between occult and arcane. What is the big difference between those?
Yeah, so they're primarily magic casting stats. But arcane is more for magic, and occult is more for monsters. So
Gotcha.
occult is monsters and dungeons and evil rituals, and arcane is just like magic, magical research, scholarly whatnots, and so on. But then there's insight, which is like wisdom and general knowledge. So
Hmm.
they're mostly just like magic casting stats. I was talking about like the stats are ruled in order. It's very scary to a lot of people, but the reality is that like there's like 3 dump stats in there for you to like be like, I don't like that one, so you switch it. Yeah.
Now I am seeing that. So for I'm seeing a chart where it says power, for the scholar, for example, which is one of the jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Weapons, they get light medium weapon, -2 to power, arcane focus. For finesse, it says they have a +0, and their equipment is minimal and hat. And I really like that just equipment is hat. I appreciate the
Gotta have
simplicity of
your
that.
hat, man. I
You
love
gotta have a
hats.
hat.
So
They're
many
great.
people are afraid of covering up their character's face with
Yes.
anything ever, and I'm like, oh no, like not be. I don't ever want to see the character's face. Like I only like the character is the outfit. Like there's not a person underneath there. That's it. Like that's what I'm interested in. I don't. I am. If you haven't, guessed by now, I'm not one for like pretty humans with pointy ears, just like in a million different color variations.
Hmm.
Um, I want things to be weird and or just cover their face with something. Put a weird mask on there. That's great. I'll take
Yeah,
that. Bit of basket on your head. Perfect. Paint an eye on it. That's the Myriad way of things. So
that's great.
it's a this with an eye. Yeah.
That's almost a Skyrim take on it, which is I'm going to spend 5 hours designing this person's face and then immediately go into third person view or put a
Yeah.
helmet on him and never see it again. Um, so you do have a really cool list of jobs and kindred, and you have a lot of great lists. I am a big fan of lists. I'm a big fan of choice. I am the antithesis of choice paralysis, where I want every choice that's ever been created.
Yeah.
Um, Looking at the list of kindred is really cool because you have some great art for all of them.
Thanks.
Um,
What's mine?
any of these that like really stand out to you as ones that was like when I'm making Tales from Myriad, I have to include this type of character because a lot of them do kind of stand out. You've got moth people, you've got fuzzy cat gnome people, you've got big cat beastkin people. There's bird folk, there's frog folk, there's the animus, which we talked about are constructs, whole variety. Any of these that were like formative to the setting of Tales from Myriad.
Yeah. So I was talking before about Ella Kremer. The Animus and the Gnome are directly inspired by her. Um, which again, for the record, I talked about with her. I was like, "Hey, I have this tabletop game coming out, and like, I got inspiration from this stuff. Very specifically, the artwork, her artwork, the Mercenary, and the Scald Wizard. Uh, so the Scald Wizard is what I was like. There should be like animated ceramic people. Like that's awesome. And that look for the gnomes. The Myriad gnomes look a little bit different, but if you look at the mercenary art from her, you'll see very clearly,
Mhm.
like that's what that is. So yeah, they were essential. Had to be a moth. They're just fun.
They're great. Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, them's them. And I think that it like out of anything, the animus is super essential to like the feeling of Myriad.
Hmm.
Um, because I mean, I've seen people be the most creative when playing an animus. Like they are, I've somebody played like a character that's just a bunch of masks over like a lump of cloak,
Hmm.
and like that's them, and I'm like, oh, like that's awesome. That's so much cooler than what I could have come up with, which is fantastic. So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is the really cool thing about the Animus is every version of them in artwork form throughout the book is so vastly different. No two are the same. It is just
Yeah,
humanoid constructs. Yeah.
you were talking about the red like parrot serpent thing. So
Yeah.
that art and almost most of the art in the book that's done by Thiago Lehmann, um, who drives me up the wall because in 2 weeks he did almost more art than I did for the book. Um, I showed up to him and because I saw like his um like his art process and I'm like, you look fast and I like the vibes.
Hmm.
Speaking of the vibes, this light just went out. So yeah, I'm like, you look like you work fast and I like the vibes. And I was like, I'll just pay you to do as much work as you can in 2 weeks. And he did. That's just what he did.
That's
So
really
yeah.
impressive.
Anyways, the tangent from that was that there's like a little sugar pot, like animus in the book somewhere
Hmm.
that he drew, and I always think about that one. Just this tiny little fella who's who's just like a little sugar bowl. The animus. It's great.
That's awesome. And you're also choosing or being determined to a homeland, which I think
Mhm.
also very much can define where your character's from. Because while you do have some that's like this is the land of these kin, your character might not necessarily be from there, which is interesting as well. So again, vast variety of all of these regions that you might imagine to have in a fantasy world. You know, your swamps and your forests and the great city of moths and everything else. Um, any of these that you particularly want to shout out, or any of these that you were again like Tales from Myriad needs to have this that like maybe like early adventures. It's like I really want to set an adventure in this sort of environment.
So this is kind of a pay no mind to the man behind the curtain kind of thing. But the Myriad didn't exist as a setting. It was a rule set. I was like, I want to play a
Mhm.
system that I can enjoy as a player, which is why there's so much like roll with the punches, randomness to it. And basically, all of those locations are just like, if you want to have this kind of game, you can play that here. So like Luxian is very like Hollow Knight Bloodborne. The Three Kingdoms is very like sword and board. Here there be dragons kind of fantasy. Crosswind Vale is like the starter zone of like World of Warcraft. Um, yeah, there's just very direct inspirations. But I will say that some of the I don't know more original ones come from my home game, and that's like Gobani and Karima. Um, so Gobani is the like desert jungle as well continent, um, which is inspired just from like my love of the game Journey. It's like one of my favorite games. And then there's Karima, which is like just this blasted wasteland of wandering giants that's been split off from everything else through like this. There's like a big bridge, and there's a big chasm in the bridge, and you can only like see across it from like climbing up like to the little edge of Crosswind Vale, and like there's one little temple and you can look across, and then Kareem is just covered in sunflowers that all face like west. So I'd say that those two locations are probably the most special, but um, people just play. They play everywhere. They've played in places I haven't played yet.
Yeah. Well, and
So
like you said, I mean, perhaps the intention was for it to be played in a variety of settings, but to also have this world building within it that is both like it has that familiarity, but is still very unique that people are like, okay, I think I can see the influences, but I can also tell a different story with
yeah,
this. Yes, you're getting these touchstones, but it is still separate and unique, and I think that's really great. Um, so we've made a character now. We've gotten our hats, our outfits, the equipment. Some things have been randomized, and now kind of choice is open
yes.
to the character. When it comes then to the next step of actually playing the game, what does, because this is a different kind of rule set than, again, coming from 5e or even from other games, probably running into a different rule set
Mhm.
here. What is the essentials of the rules to play Tales from Myriad?
It is a 2d6 system. So whenever you're going to perform an action, you're going to make a skill test, etc. You use d6s. And you use d6s for pretty much any, like, I'm trying to see if I can do a thing. Um, Everything else is other dice, damage dice that you don't use d6 for damage. It's d4s, d8s, and d12s. For charts, it's d20s. But the little spice in Myriad, and where a lot of that mechanical fiddliness comes from, is the exploding dice. So when in Tales from Myriad, whenever you roll any dice ever for whatever reason, if you roll the highest number, you get one free explosion, which means you get to roll an extra dice. You get to roll another one. And then after that, you have to consult your luck score. So like you have a +1 luck, you get like 2 maximum, right? Because you get first one's free, and then you get like additional ones.
Mm-hmm.
That is called the game's critical range. Everybody has like a critical range of 1, and there are things that increase your critical range, including doing weird things in combat and other whatnot. But it is for all of the dice, which means that people rolling d4s have a much better chance at exploding their dice. And as soon as people realize this, like the little gears in their heads start going, and they're like, luck build, yes. I'll make a luck build.
Right.
So yeah, it's 2d6 and you explode your dice. Casting spells is pretty interesting because it's like you have a little dice pool that's determined by your spellcasting modifier. And that's the number of dice you can roll to try to cast a spell. So I was saying earlier, there's a casting difficulty, which if the casting difficulty is 3 up, it means that out of all the dice you roll, one of those has to be a 3 or higher to successfully cast a spell. The little sauce on that is, first of all, they're still exploding. And second of all, doubles, triples, and so on cause miscasts. So you're kind of wagering how much energy to put into a spell without like blowing out the speakers effectively. Yeah, other than that, I guess you can sacrifice clothes to negate damage.
Mm-hmm.
You have a last breath, so whenever you get hit down to 0, you're not dead, you're just on your last breath. The next time you get hit, you need to roll to see if you're dead. That's about it. I guess whenever you have personal quests. Yeah, you have personal quests, which are like little random things that are little achievements, and if you do them, you get to like put it into a stat, or you get to get another ability, and so on. That's the basics. Yeah,
That's pretty great. To segue then, as speaking of hit points, to combat then, what does combat look like? I noticed in the book that like there are size categories that this can be played like proper tabletop with actual grid system. What is how does combat operate in Tales from Myriad?
well, it starts on a coin flip, and then it's back and forth. So
Okay.
one of the things about like negating that randomness is that you always know, like, I'm going to get to go next. Like somebody on our side is going to get to go next, and then after that, an enemy's going to go. It's very important because there's like lingering effects like poison, which like deal damage every turn. And so they're like taking damage every turn, and you might need to stop it or whatever. Um, but yeah, so that was one of the things. I didn't like rolling for initiative. It took too long. Everybody complains about it. Everybody complains about initiative taking too long, and then like you're just on your phone until it's your turn, especially if you really have nothing to do. And yeah, so this idea of like, well, I'll jump in when I feel like I have something I can do. And I've never had any problems with it, and everybody loves it. I've had a few people be like, well, what if two people want to go at the same time? And if I've ever run into that in a game, one person's like, oh no, it's fine, you just go. I'm fine. Yeah, that's I mean, that's the basics of combat, turns of rounds. But combat, like I said, without exploding dice, super swingy. You can't get one shot. That's the like little insurance you have of the last breath thing. But yes, very swingy. You'll be like, I'll try to hit, and you're like 4 damage, and then somebody's like, I'm gonna blow up the wall, and then it's like, I'm like, well, that's gonna be this much, dice that they roll, and then there's a bunch of dice, so like they all explode, and they're like 60 damage. I'm like, geez, not that extreme, but still, yeah. And then other times where people are just like, can't hit me, my dodge is too high, and then like one thing gets through, and they're like, I'm dead. Like,
Yeah.
I instantly gone. So yeah, that like it really keeps you on your toes. And all of the monsters were designed to be like these little mechanical toolkits, and that's awesome in the game. Like the back half of the game is this big GM's guide. I don't like writing lists, so it's mostly like how to make your own tools, like what you need to do, and like here are examples and etc. So regrettably, there's not enough monsters in the book, but I'm working on that. But all the monsters in the book are these little toolkits. They're just these little mechanical boxes that it's like they operate in this way, to help like teach players and game masters, how to make their own monsters. So anytime you fight a monster, it's doing something weird. You very rarely get somebody that just like stands around and tries to hit you. And if they do, it's going to hurt typically. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
combat.
that was actually something I really wanted to shout out was for anybody that even runs a game, even if it's not Tales from Myriad, if they've never run a Tales from Myriad game in their life, I think reading the second half of this book helps any GM.
I'm glad.
Yeah,
I
no,
didn't
the
think so.
contributions that you put in about like there's an entire section titled Designing Monsters for GM's Fun. Like
Yeah,
that alone is sometimes a very unfamiliar concept where it's just like, no, I need to design a monster to like hurt them a little bit, but then ultimately lose. Like, no, you're a player too. You're supposed to have fun. You're not supposed to like revel in the harm to your player characters, but like
I do.
you should be having fun playing this monster. The exploration travel generator, how to make good puzzles.
That
Not
that one's
something
my
that's
pride and joy. Oh,
yeah,
it
not
warms
something
my
that you
heart
see that
anytime.
often. Oh, it's so
Anytime
good.
anybody's like, I'm finally confident enough to make and like have a puzzle in my game. Oh, it just warms my heart. Very happy. Yeah, I love the GM's guide. There's something to be said about the balance of like providing enough things for people to just reach into the box and pull out.
Hmm.
But I don't like writing. Silly because I wrote a 300-page book, but
Yeah.
should have thought about that. But I like making tools, right? Like breaking down how this thing is made and other things and how you can do it too. Because, you're ultimately the idea behind Myriad is like, if it's the GM's job to make things, to make the stuff and provide the stuff for the game, then there should be the tools to do that, right? So it's more of a like, it was my game philosophy at the time. If it is your job as a player to make decisions, then your decisions should be being made in the game. If it is the game master's job to be making the things for the game, then the game should be showing them how to do that. So that's what that second half is. The puzzle guide was actually done after studying escape rooms. So like how escape rooms are made, and I'm like,
Yeah.
aha, yes, because every D&D puzzle and any tabletop puzzle especially is just an escape room. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, sometimes the escape room is just open the door, just twist the handle and open the door. And it's not even locked in the first place. But
Oh
sometimes it is
God.
more complex than that.
Yeah, sorry. Another aside, because you just mentioned that it says in the game that like in the dungeon master or the dungeon making section that like
Mhm.
assume each room you make will take the players an hour. And I've had people be like, an hour? It's gonna take them an hour. No, that's not gonna happen. And like guaranteed, you have 4 rooms, you play for 4 hours, and so on. It is like 1 room per hour, and I'm like, yep, uh-huh. Told you. Like has always remained true. So yes,
Um,
just open the door sometimes. But I
just open the door,
digress.
see what's on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned that there isn't like a super robust bestiary or like monster section. However, I do want to shout it out because I think that a skill you have is naming things in unique and fun ways.
Yes.
And Swamp Mass, Old Lycanthrope, and Postergeist are now my concept
Yay.
of the only 3 genders. Postergeist especially, very
Thank
great
you.
for a ghost that possesses paintings. Perfect portmanteau. Love it.
Thank you.
Um,
That's one of the things that I talk about to tell people. I think in the Making Monster guide, or I recorded a video for it. I'm like, just use something like alliterative or whatever, or like that rhymes or like sounds right to your ear
yeah.
or is a pun, like because that like all the stuff will come from that, right?
Mm,
Um, God, I'm trying to think of another one. I think like Rockatress is one because it has like a mohawk.
yeah.
Yeah, like stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, you think of like the way that we name things in the real world is often like whatever's catchiest that enough people are going to use
Yeah,
it. And if you can get one person to portmanteau something, that's how we've named things. That's how
yeah.
we've gotten like all of these variety of names. You even think of like cryptids, skunk ape. Somebody's like, yeah, no, that's a big primate that smells bad. We're not going to call it Bigfoot. Bigfoot also like an apt name, but like ours smells worse, so that's a skunk ape. That's
Yeah, an
that's now the
athlete's
name
foot
for
was
it.
already taken, so
It was, yeah, that would have been better. Maybe if it were gym shorts, they would have gone with that. But I just like old lycanthrope. It's not just like a werewolf. It's not just a lycanthrope. It is an old lycanthrope. I like that you give the structure for that because again, like you said, they're frameworks. You can use it, or you can build off of it and adapt it, or make your own thing with it. And I think
yeah.
that's really great. Any of these like names are great.
Hmm.
Were any of these when it comes to any list, I'm always going to ask what your favorite kid is. So any of these really stood out as like this has to go in the bestiary
Oh, what my favorite monster is?
if you have one.
I have to think about
I'm
the
a big monster
monsters.
person, so I'm always gonna ask that.
I'm gonna look because I just have the book right here.
Yeah, okay.
And while I'm doing that, I'm gonna tell you that like well, that's probably one of them. That while making the game, like I got to the part where I had to make monsters, and the thought of it exhausted me so much. I took like a 6 month break from working. I was like, I can't do this.
Well,
That's
when you
actually
come
one
up
of
with
the things.
Loctopus, it's you put a lot of work into
I think
a
Loctopus was
monster that disguises itself as a lock and has multiple arms. Loctopus is pretty good.
I think Loctopus was made by somebody else, actually. Yeah, Sindri. That was one of the early supporters. I was like, I need help making monsters, and so like some people made some. Um, Gosh, what are some of my favorites here? Well, the Celestial Sphinx is one of my
Celestial Flink's
favorites.
very pretty. Yeah.
So the art, yeah, the art of that, that was sculpted by Ilse Hort, who was my roommate, who has a little bit more art in the book, but yeah, she's the one who like I just moaned at for like 4 years.
Hmm.
Um, about tabletop games. Let me see, just because I love that. I do like Old Lycanthrope. I like the skeletons
Hmm.
just for the lore and notes, which is where I get to be silly, where I tell them that like, yeah, real skeletons, however, resent the mindset that they all look alike and find remarkably numerous methods of self-expression and personal identity, despite formerly lacking them both inherently. But don't tell them I said that. So it's like stuff like that. I think is my favorite. Scarecrow is fun because they will turn you into a scarecrow, and I think that's funny.
Hmm.
Oh no, my favorite is the Tiny Frog Wizard. Done, easy.
Okay.
Yeah. He has one spell, Tiny Frog, and it turns you to a tiny frog, and it just tanks your stats. And the only way to have it undone is to have Tiny Frog cast on you again.
Okay. Hey,
Yeah,
who needs more
that's
than
it.
that?
That's it. I have a character right now, a player who's like currently Tiny Frog, and they're loving it. Um, which is funny because like their character was like very content, just like loved themselves, and they're like, I'm just going on this adventure. And the Tiny Frog has been like their arc. Because they went from an animus to a tiny frog, so now they have organs, and they're just like dealing with that. Oh yeah, Tiny Frog is so funny. Inspired by the frog condition of like Final Fantasy.
I see in chat that the Cryad got shouted out. The Weeping Willow.
Yeah, the Weeping
Um,
Willow. Yeah, I made
yeah,
that one on a video.
and the Gobbins only doing one
Of
damage, but it's a
course.
coin flip, so they hit was very funny. Um, what was the one that I came across? I like Psychic Mantis just for the name. Again, it sounds like a Marvel hero. Um,
That was
the
inspired by
Scarecrow.
Psycho Mantis
Yeah,
from
yeah, absolutely.
from Metal Gear.
The Gimlet Tinkerer was it's Scowl Bear. Scowl Bear, great name.
Oh
Just
yeah,
yeah,
Scowlbear.
love the Scowl Bear.
That was one of the early ones I
Um,
made. I was like, yeah, they'll have like masks on them because they're like an occult thing. Man,
yeah.
I like that one.
But yeah, really, I think really creative suggestions to them. Again, you can use them or you can build off of them. Well, the artwork for the Smograboff Hydra is
Yeah,
haunting. It's
Jason Kiantoro. There's the full spread of that is the combat spread, but
yeah,
that's the creature. Um, that one, I mean, that one is just straight up like the marble from Final Fantasy. But
yeah,
the reason for that, so I mean, there's a lot of like puns and stuff in there, or like in jokes. So the Marlboro in Final Fantasy Tactics has an attack called Bad Breath, which like applies a bunch of status effects, and the Smograboff Hydra has Horrible Halitosis, which applies a bunch of status effects. But the reason why that exists, because people are just like copying as if I'm not allowed to just like make in jokes at things that I like. Um, the reason that that exists is because Jason Kiantoro, I saw his art and I was like, I want art from you. I want a big illustration. I need a big combat illustration. I'm like, these characters fighting a monster, and they're like, what monster? And I was like, I don't know actually. I don't like have a big list of monsters. But they're a Final Fantasy artist, so they do like lots of like Final Fantasy 14 and Tactics like personal art and commissions. And I was like, well, I'll just make something you understand. It's a Marlboro, but it has Hydra heads. And they're like, yeah, great, I could do that, and they did perfectly. Um, yeah,
yeah. It's a beholder, but the eye stalks are Hydra heads or Rathtars from Star Wars. But again, the tentacles are Hydras. It's
yeah,
a big mouth with even more mouths somehow
it's a big
coming off of
mouth.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's horrifying and beautiful. Um, So, those are maybe some of the monsters that you might come across, but ultimately, the GM has plenty of tools provided to them to create their own monsters and kind of, build off of the world, tell their own unique story, and not feel bound to the whatever monster manual might otherwise be attached to a game. When it comes to the characters actually encountering these monsters, I saw that there is, experience points they can earn. There is leveling up. What are the leveling systems like for characters?
right. I was inspired a lot by Dungeon Crawl Classics from this one because nobody likes having to like count up experience points,
Sure.
but or like there's weird stuff with they don't like tedium, right? That's the most of it. Nobody wants to be like, okay, there are this many enemies and they're each worth 3, and then that gets divided by everybody. And then like the only way you're getting XP is because of like one thing or another. So the way Dungeon Crawl Classics does it is it's just like, yeah, for like everything you did, you get 0. I think in DCC it's like 0 to 3, and this it's 0 to 4. You just get awarded 0 to 3, 0 to 4 experience points. It's just like so it's super easy and very people like very tangible progress. I didn't like milestone because it feels very lazy to me, as where you're like, yeah, my players have complained at me long enough.
Right.
Yeah, sure, here you go. Because like playing in 5e, I had like this really big fight where they fought like 30 things. Um, and one of my players was like, that's enough for us to level up twice. But like, it didn't feel right for the story at the time for you to level until, and I was like, whatever. Um, so yeah, this like, at the end of a session, you divvy up. You're like, okay, you guys like found this, that's 1 XP. You figured out this thing, you solved this puzzle, you fought this thing and lived. And then you get to do little fun things with the bonuses of like there's like a catch up system. So if you die and you have to start from level one, but you get bonus XP based on the highest person, like highest level person in your party. Um, yeah, 10 levels, 10 easy levels because I just feel like nobody has time to get to level 20.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Who could ever do that?
yeah, so like it's a playable 10 levels. I think Shadows of the Demon Lord did that as well.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, you kind of piecemeal your little abilities. You get to like old World of Warcraft, you like go down a talent tree a little bit. It's more like you just have to move like sequentially, but you can get any of the lines as long as you have the thing before it. Um, yeah, and then you can break off into specialty classes, which are hidden at the back of the book.
Yeah, it's because it's
Um,
the very last section. Yeah.
Yeah, that was done. I very purposefully hid that in the back of the book. First of all, as a reward for getting through the book. It's like, hey, you found it. The extra character options that I hid back here, but also to de incentivize them because I didn't want people to feel like they had to take a specialty class. Um, and they're really prohibitive. They're super restrictive. Once you take a specialty class, you cannot get anything in your old job. You can't level up in it. You can't get more abilities in it. You're stuck in the specialty class. And so, like I said, the game's about choices. That's one of the choices is like, can I get this like circumstantial big power boost that's like really flavorful and unique? Because if I do, I guarantee nobody else is going to get it because nobody else wants to be restricted like that. Everybody's like, oh, but the level 7 ability over here is so good. Like, I really want that, so you just don't do it. Um, or if you do, it's limited at 10 levels. So, like, if you don't do it early enough, you can't get the next tier. You can't go to like the tier 2 of the specialty class abilities. Um, yeah, it's one of those choices.
Yeah. I was seeing in jobs you've got, the it's creator or character creation jobs. You've got things like thief and marauder. You've got, kind of the things you might expect for fantasy sort of character generation sort of things. But yeah, like you were saying, it's kind of the specialty narrows it down a little bit where you could do like blacksmith or tea shop, also great, but very much like you were saying, it does limit you then for sorry if you're a thief and you're now a tea shop owner, no more thief stuff. You're that job is not your main job anymore. You can't do a side hustle for both. So yeah, I like that the opportunity is provided, but also with that cost to that and cost and loss, the banes and boons that you kind of
Yeah.
run into at the beginning. There definitely seems to be this plus and minus to a lot of the things in here to really balance out. I think that's great.
Yeah,
Uh,
the game kind of punishes you in a bit for like trying to force your character to do something. You're
mhm.
like, no, I want this. I'm gonna do this. That's like, okay, but you're gonna get like punished a little bit for that.
Yeah. So with the characters, then we've made our characters. We've talked about some of the monsters that we can fight. We've talked about the rule set to actually fight them and to run into them. Um, we even talked a little bit about spells. I know that there's sections in here that talk about the spells themselves, invocations, recipes, the potential for corruption or curses as well.
Yeah.
I thought the spell list was really great. I thought, again,
Thanks.
the naming convention, very fun. Any of those that you particularly want to spotlight? Because there's a number of great ones, but
Oh,
any of
well,
them that really stood up to you?
I think everybody will agree that the best spell is a guy, which just
Yeah,
summons a guy to do a thing. And
yeah.
the reason that it's named that is so that you can say, I know a guy, and
Hmm.
then you get to you just call a guy in and he helps you out. That's probably my favorite. um, just because it's so silly. God, there's so many silly ones.
Yeah, I
Um,
also like Pocket Mouse because it's kind of like a guy,
yeah,
but if a guy was a mouse.
yeah, Pocket Mouse. You just have it. Oh, I think another one is Find, where like it makes fun of itself for like not being a real spell because you're just like looking for something for a really long
Yes.
time. There's that one.
Yeah, it's
Um,
two ends of the spectrum. You've got things like Dagger Storm, where you're
yeah,
summoning this cloud of daggers, and then you've got that one, which is like, listen, come on.
yeah. You come on. You're looking for like a normal thing over here. One of my favorite things about the spells, there's two favorite things. One of them is that you get them randomly, which I love. Just because I mean the paralysis and the like feeling the need to like choose the right spell or the best spell is like no, you make stuff slimy. That's what you can do. You're the slime guy. That's get over it. And if you want more spells, then get out there. Go find them. The other thing is that I very specifically designed all of the spells to not be what I call lock and key spells, which are spells that did like one specific use that just circumvents a problem. And like its goal is to circumvent a problem, like the unlock doors spell, or whatever variety of that. I don't like it. You could take Ingrid's melting, which like melts a like handful of metal for like a little bit and before it reforms. It's like this game is very much this idea of like if you have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Except in Myriad, it's like you have a bunch of crap and you're trying to figure out how to turn that thing into a nail and this thing into a hammer. You're like,
Yeah.
how can I use my spell? Because it's like all I have right now. Like, how can I like, collapse a 10-foot cube of rubble to my advantage at this moment? Like, let me look around. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Which
think
is
that's
why I
really
think
cool.
it makes them fun. It's in the beginning, I was just like writing them all up, and I was just like, this is boring. And also because you get them randomly, I had to test. I had to like roll up a bunch of random ones, and if I got something that wasn't exciting, I was like, well, I'm not excited about getting that spell. Well, I have to re-roll. I have to rewrite it. So yeah, that's that. I'm trying to see here
Yeah,
if I have any other silly ones. Dryad's Thirst is very funny. You make somebody really, really thirsty, and they
really
drink the first
thirsty.
thing
I
they
did see that
see.
one. Yeah.
Oh my God. I had a player. He took that. He took it on purpose as a nature spell, which like nature spells are one of the few things you actually do get to choose. I'm like, what are you
hmm
going to do with Dryad's Thirst? Well, they were fighting like a corrupted kindred, and I randomly rolled, and the corrupted kindred had a burning belly, so they could like hack up burning balls of phlegm.
hmm
And they got them to drink like a vial of oil like that, which like blew them up. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, all right. And then they learned that he could just torture people by making them super thirsty and restraining them. So yeah, that boulder is great.
hmm
Um, you just summon a boulder, and it's always the same boulder.
Yeah.
Because man, you just might need that. You just might need a 5-foot boulder, a small boulder the size of a large boulder.
It also, well, I love that it feels like you have a contract with just this one boulder that regardless of how far away that
Yeah.
boulder is, like, sorry, honey, I've got to go.
Yeah.
I'm on call.
Oh God, yeah. I'm hoping he won't leave me there until you look away for too long and then it gets to go back. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think I love that the utility of each spell isn't like it's open-ended. There is nothing clearly
Yep.
defined of like, okay, this is exactly what it is. This is exactly what you need it for. It does have that creativity built into it where you can solve a variety of problems
Yeah.
with a single spell. I think that's really great. Um, and then, yeah, we mentioned kind of curses and conditions as well. There's a lot that's built into this game, and I don't necessarily want to like go super in depth on everything because I want people to see it for themselves. But with that in mind, is there anything that you particularly want to spotlight that I might have missed in this very again robust book and like you mentioned at the beginning, I think the longest PDF anyone has ever sent me in the best ways for a certainty. 301 pages, pretty significant. So anything else you might like to spot that?
Well, I'll actually mention here one of the comments here is miscasting also solves a lot of problems, which is very true. The miscasts are so wild that oftentimes I'll like this player actually, in fact, will like summon a very like meh spell like snakes. It's like I don't need snakes right now. I need to miscast as hard as I can, and
Hmm.
maybe something will flip the tide here. Like, oh, the floor is frictionless now, or like, just I get swapped with somebody in 60 feet. It's, anything to like shake up the playing field. So miscasting is very funny. There's ways to not miscast, of course, but when you're just like a miscast maverick, you're just you're like, we're doing it. Like, what you got for me? How can I, because that's the thing, is that you can't um directly get hurt from the miscasting.
Hmm.
You might turn your fingers into snakes, but like,
Which kind of is like summoning snakes in a way. So
yeah, that's true. You
yeah,
could just get
yeah,
a double for that.
yeah.
That's one of the things though about the game, is that like there's so much randomness, but the only time you're getting punished, air quotes there, is when you make a decision. Like, you decide that you're going to like blow out the speakers on this spell so that you can miscast it. You're choosing how many dice to roll, or you're choosing extra dark magic dice to get to do that. Like, or you're choosing not to use a component because you want to like save it for later, or you just went at a bad time because you chose when to go in combat, and then you got poisoned, and now you can't do anything about it. But all of the random things aren't there to hurt you. With the curses, it just changes how you approach problems. It's not like you don't just die, right? It's like your fingers are snakes, but the snakes are really good at lock picking and have infravision, right? So it's stuff like that. So with all the randomness, the only real consequences are coming from your actions, which I like about the game.
I really appreciate that too, because like you said at the beginning, it is so heavily based on choice. After that character creation, everything is about choices, and the only real punishment a character sees comes from it's the consequences of my actions. Yep. Come to find me again. But everything else feels consequential but not punitive. It is change, but change is not necessarily always bad. It's change. Change is good and bad. And I think that's a really beautiful kind of like core concept to Tales from Myriad, is that yes, the world will affect you, but you have the most control by way of your actions over the character's life. That's really cool. Carson, anything else that I might have missed in Tales from Myriad?
In the book, oh man, I don't know. There's so much in here.
There is a lot in here, and it's all incredible. Like I said, that second half I think is something that any GM should read. I think it'll make you a better GM just by reading it.
Thank you. I wrote that. I know it's a lot of prose, and people want product more than prose, because I can write multiple books on being a good GM. I feel. But yeah, I did design the second half of that book to be agnostic. Like, it's just game mastering advice. This idea that like you're always going to have to adjust to your party. There's not ever going to be a perfect solution. Here is how you make things that you can do for any game, right? This concept of making dungeons or puzzles or monsters, and so on. What else? I don't know. Man, this book's so long, but I think we've got it. I think we've touched on each of the chapters. The stores are really fun. They always come with a shop and seller quirk. I like that. Those were very fun. Those have been used to great advantage, and I love the little isometric building art in them too. Also from Final Fantasy Tactics, because that's at an isometric angle, and I just like seeing little dioramas. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I think the tools that you have built in here, and even the section on making your own tools, it's clear that you put in a lot of work and a lot of time into making your own thing. And instead of closing the door behind you, you put out a book that allows people to see the path, the breadcrumbs that led you to creating these things, and then gave them the ability to make their own thing by reading through this, or at least the tools to build their tools, which is pretty great.
The tools to build their tools.
Exactly. For folks who would be getting into Tales from Myriad for the first time, what is one piece of advice that you would have for players, for GMs, for anybody who might be sitting at the table and rolling a couple of D6 for the first time for this?
Um, Go big or go home.
Love
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, just like if you're gonna play a one shot, which I don't recommend because it's a campaign game, you're gonna play
Mm,
a one shot. Just let them have stuff. Just give them stuff because like the level one situation is there because you're supposed to then embark on an adventure where you change and whatnot. Um, and otherwise, just start in the vampire castle. I think it says that in the game. It's like start. No, you don't need to lead up to anything. Like just do it. Like just do it. Your character. It even says in the character creation thing. It's like you're like a leader of a small cult, or like you're a whatever. It's big. Make it big. It's fine. There's no. It's a game that bends, not breaks. Right? Like you
hmm
just go big. Make it wild. Make it wacky. It's whatever. Who cares? It's a game. Like have fun.
I
That's
love that.
that's what I want. The dice explode. They go crazy. It's swingy. Like have fun.
I think fewer games need to start in taverns. I think more need to start in vampire castles. To be fair, I
Yeah,
think
why
that's great.
not? What do
Yeah.
you like? Oh, the narrative. One of the things actually, last little thing about this.
Yeah.
I just want to preach this. The the one word story method of getting everybody on the same page. If you're going to do a one shot, do the one word story. I think it says that where like you start with one player and they say one word and then the next and it goes around until you have like a reason why you're there. Um, fantastic method. Not only is it hilarious, but it brings everybody together instantly in like this creative field of everybody helps make this thing. And it is now as wild as it is because of our own input, and now we all feel like we have a piece of the pie, right? Um, Speaking of the vampire castle, it's how we got like some weird story where like everybody was on their way to the banana dimension, right? It's like they were on their way to the banana dimension, but then they got lost, and like the vampire hunting party accidentally wound up in the banana dimension, like really confused. And it's like it's so dumb, but like God, if you start a one shot off like that, you're like, what, what are we doing here? It's so funny. It's so funny. And Myriad is such a funny game. Yeah, one word story method, man. Go big or go home. Just make it wacky. Go wild.
Absolutely. Yeah. What are you scared of? Banana vampires?
Yeah,
What's the worst they're
come
gonna do?
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, have too much potassium, you can die from that. But
You can't.
not you. You're awesome. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a player character. It's great.
It's a pleasure.
Um, maybe they're a conscious inanimate object and they can't even process potassium. Who knows?
Yeah, it's fine.
Um, yeah, it'll be great.
It's fine.
Carson, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Thank you
Yeah,
so much
thank you.
for sharing Tales from Myriad with us. Um, for people who are looking for Tales from Myriad and for yourself, where can they find both of those things online?
You can find me online on Blue Sky at EmberWick Art. I also have an itch.io. There's like a few things on there, including a how to run a horror one shot uh, little game called You Die at the End, which I made, which I like very much. Um, and metalweekgames.com is where you can find Tales from Myriad.
Yeah,
It has different regions though, so if you're like in the EU, don't go to the US region and be like, it says it doesn't ship to me. So yes.
good to know. Yeah, metalweavegames.com. That's actually something I meant to bring up earlier. That is the primary publisher that you got
Mm-hmm.
attached to for this. That's great. That's awesome. So yeah, you can find everything there. If you do Google Tales from Myriad, you might see the very successful Kickstarter that Tales from Myriad had not that long ago, and yeah, definitely check out all of Carson's stuff. Artwork, but also the itch.io. Again, we've been very lucky to be joined by Carson Daniel, who
Thank
is
you.
a TTRPG writer, creator, designer, artist,
Yeah.
likely going to recognize that art. Notorious for it, in fact. And I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you sharing this very very fun game. I am looking forward to running it here, hopefully in the near future, because
Wow, thank
it's
you.
very great. Well, thank you. No, it's great.
Um, there's
Always a
there's
celebration for the hard work you put in.
Thank you. God. Oh, this thing has just been a whetstone around my neck. I'm just like, oh, or a millstone. I don't know why I changed it to whetstone. Millstone around my neck. But I'm working on something else. There's gonna be a housekeeping document coming out that has
Okay.
it just has more. More clothes, not more spells. I'm very adamant about that. But more items, more monsters. I'm making a little bestiary for that. It's gonna be more art. That's really what I'm excited about. And player fortresses. Yeah, you could have a little house and then you install little facilities in there. And so, like in the weeks where you're not playing, you're like, oh, I'm like in the alchemy lab trying to make a recipe. And you get a roll for that. So that's happening. I'm making that. That's going to be a little expansion for the 1.5 version, kind of for Myriad.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you what comes next, and asked to answer. So that's great.
Yes,
Um,
that and other things.
all right. Great. So again, thank you to Carson. Thank you to all of you for joining us in chat. If you have any questions about Tales from Myriad in the future, and you are watching this perhaps later on YouTube or on the VOD on Twitch, you can always go over to the Sword and Key Discord and post questions in our server there. We do have a channel for Sword and Tea discussions. You can always post questions, and we'll make sure that Carson sees them, and we'll get answers to you. For Sword and Tea and for Sword and Key, I am Derek Sword. I use he, him pronouns. I've been your host. And you can find all of Sword and Key stuff at beacons.ai/Sword and Key. Right up at the top on Beacons, you're going to see our Twitch. If you're watching us live, go ahead and give us a follow if you haven't already. It's much appreciated. If you are watching this later on YouTube, give us a follow to us there. Always much appreciated. The YouTube link is further on the bottom on Beacons. In the middle between those two, you're going to see links to our socials. That's Instagram and Blue Sky. We also have a Discord. You're more than welcome over there. We do some stuff over in our Discord, like movie nights, that I'll talk about here in a second. Besides that, we have links to some of our affiliates. We have a number of great affiliates, like Long Dog Dice. Jen makes incredible dice sets. You can get a custom dice set at any time for a really reasonable price. You can even pre-order the Sword and Key official dice. They are Horizons Call dice, which is a game we're playing later today. They are vibrant shade of blue, little flakes of copper in them, and the D6 has the Sword and Key logo on it. You can use code Sword and Key for 10% off your first purchase there. You can also use code Sword and Key for 10% off your first purchase with Eldritch Foundry. They make custom minis for your TTRPG character, no matter how weird and wild or normal and mild they happen to be. You also can use our special affiliate link for a special deal. Where if you are an STL kind of person, if you are 3D printing models, you can get a 3-month subscription for $19.99 only with our special affiliate link. So check that out. You are only limited by your own time, printing abilities, and the filament that you have to purchase for it. Other than that, we are also affiliates with Hit Point Press. They make, I mean, just tons of stuff. You know who Hit Point Press is. Use our affiliate link if you're going to be purchasing anything from them, whether it's comics, music licenses, TTRPG accessories, cards, I mean, plush, tons of stuff. We also have a number of charitable organizations that we are in support of at any given time, as well as some Pallies, which is a tool that we use to support our players on this channel for certain games. You can see the full links for those in the Beacons as well. And then also in the Beacons is the links to the podcast Monster Crush. It is the only Sword and Key podcast currently. It is a podcast I do with my friend LD, where we talk about different cryptids, creatures, and miscellaneous monsters from myth and how smoochable they are. It is a monster lovers podcast. So if you love monsters or love monsters, check that out wherever podcasts are found. We recently came back from our summer break, and LD's still a little busy, so I did a new episode with my friend Shadow, where we talked about unicorns. That episode came out last weekend, I think. So we'll have another one out in 2 weekends. I don't know, whatever time it is. I'll look at the calendar here in a second. But that also will be an episode with Shadow. So again, check that wherever podcasts are found. to look at our calendar real quick, the first and foremost thing is that in just a couple hours at 3 p.m. Pacific time, we will have the next episode of Horizon's Call. This will be our last full episode before we take a little hiatus. We will have an episode next week, but it's going to be kind of like an offshoot one. So this will be our last like main canon sort of event that is 3 p.m. Pacific time. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time, we have Anik and Eva's Chaotic Playthrough, which is back. And then, like I said, on the 27th, we do have the next episode of Horizon's Call, which is going to be kind of a spin-off episode. Typically on Tuesdays, we have Gate Night. That's where LD Shadow and I play Baldur's Gate 3 at 7 p.m. Pacific time. We're taking a couple of weeks off, so we'll be back with that on the 30th. And then our next Sword and Tea is going to be on the 28th. We are sitting with Contagion, who's the game creator of Stars Go Cold. So that will be 3 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday the 28th. Sunday the 28th also has the next episode of Anik and Eva's Chaotic Playthrough and the release of Monster Crush. We do movie nights on our Discord. They're totally free. All you have to do is just hang out, be a part of it. Yesterday, we did an all-day movie marathon of the Lord of the Rings Extended Edition. Typically there at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So our next one coming up on October 3rd is going to be Death of a Unicorn, the Paul Rudd 2025 movie. So check that out. More stuff is coming soon. We have 2 new streams that are going to be starting the week of October 5th. One is going to be on Sundays at 2 p.m. Pacific time. I'm sorry, that one actually starts October 12th, 2 p.m. Pacific time, which is Nightmares on the Frontier. And then we have a Monster Hearts 2 game called Summer in Carcosa, which is going to be at 11 a.m. Pacific time on Mondays starting October 6th. So keep an eye out for that. October is going to be busy for Sword and Key. We've got real life stuff going on. And so maybe a little bit quieter, but we'll still have more stuff to you. And you can always check out our socials as well as our Discord for our calendar and our weekly events. That is it for us here at Sword and Key. Again, massive thank you to Carson. Massive thank you to all of you for joining us. We hope to see you in just a few hours. In the meantime, we are going to be rating Mayday Roleplay. So go spread some positivity over there and be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Wonderful.